Welcome, everyone. My name's Stephanie. I'm the moderator for the Service and My Recovery workshop today. Please help me open the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, everybody. Our speakers today are Elizabeth C. and Donna D. Elizabeth's from Region 4 and Donna's from Region 8. Today we'll be talking about tradition and concept number 8. In case you don't have it memorized, tradition 8 is Overeaters Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. And the principle behind that is fellowship. The concept that we will be discussing today is the 8th concept, which is the Board of Trustees has delegated to its executive committee the responsibility to administer the OA World Service Office. And the principle behind that is delegation. The 12-step and 12 traditions of Overeaters Anonymous and the pamphlet, the 12 concepts of OA service, are great resources for more information about the traditions and the concepts and are available at the OA bookstore. To stay in harmony with traditions 6 and 10, we ask the speakers and the members who share to mention only OA-approved literature. There will be time after each speaker for sharing, and this workshop is being recorded and will be posted on the OA website podcast page, as well as on other podcast feeds like iTunes. If you speak, it's considered implied consent to have your voice and your share recorded and posted. To preserve your anonymity, please use only your first name or a fictitious name when you share. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, even though this is a virtual meeting. Please use special workshop number 82278 when making your contribution. You can go to the OA website and click on contributions if you like, or you can also mail in a contribution to the World Service Office. The address is on any piece of OA literature, and it's P.O. Box 44020, Rio Rancho, New Mexico, 87174. And if you have any questions regarding the contributions, you can contact me, Stephanie, the Virtual Service Trustee, or you can contact the World Service Office. Again, there are numbers on the back of the literature. Thank you for helping us carry the message. What I'd like to do, first of all, is introduce our first speaker, Elizabeth C., who's going to be speaking on Tradition 8. Elizabeth, welcome. Come on in and talk to us.
This is Elizabeth from St. Louis, Missouri. I want to say a little bit about before I came to OA. I had a very sad childhood. I was abused. I was molested. I was abandoned. I was socially deprived. I was an outcast at school and everywhere. I survived that, though, but I survived it by turning to food. And then in my 20s, I had a lot of abusive relationships that I couldn't help myself from setting up. And again, I turned to food. And when I was 40, I had a really serious trauma, and I turned to food 100%. I was in despair. I lost my job because I couldn't stop eating to go to work. And I despised myself. I was just a basket case. And then somebody said, I know something you might be interested in. And this blessed person came, not in our fellowship, but she knew about it. She found a meeting in my hometown. She drove me to the meeting. She sat there with me through the meeting so I couldn't leave, and got me into OA, because as soon as I walked in the door, I knew I had found my people, and I wasn't about to leave again. And then after about a month, they said, okay, you're going to lead the meeting. And I thought that leaders were professionals. No, they said, we all take turns, and it's your turn. So they gave me the key to the church. Now, I was still really depressed and really sad and not feeling very good about myself, but they gave me the key to the church, and I was the one that came back the next time and let them all in. And I was so happy. I was just thrilled. And so that was my introduction to service. And it made me a part of everything. It made me inside the very first group I had ever been inside of. I was always on the outside looking in. And, of course, I continued doing that. We went out to lunch afterwards. And some people came to the meeting and went home again, but I came to the meeting and went out to lunch with the people and got more fellowship that way. And then some people in our meeting were doing entertainment for a convention, and so I helped them out with the entertainment. And oh my gosh, it was just wonderful. It was beyond belief how happy I was to be with a group of people working together for something worthwhile, bigger than myself. I just can't describe it, but you probably know. Then I went to become an intergroup rep, and then I was on the outreach committee, and then I was on an office volunteer, and then I was on the Board of Trustees. But fellowship has its limits. Fellowship is wonderful, and they kept me in OA for years and years, but I wasn't working the steps, and that's the point. So eventually I drifted away, and when I came back, I knew that this time I was going to have to deal with step 2, which is what I couldn't get past before. So I came back really enthusiastic and really dedicated. I did get past step 2, and I got back into service. What I'm really wanting to say is the fellowship is amazing. And it's because we don't have, in that first meeting, if we had had a paid leader, I don't think I would have felt as much like I had found my people as I did. The honesty and the caring and the sharing and all of the people that had done all the things I did, even the leaders, that really, really moved me and made me feel totally comfortable and at home. These positions that I began to hold, in intergroup rep and so on, in intergroup, I had looked at people who did that from afar, and I had thought, these people are special. These people really know what's going on, and these people are to be admired, and I can't talk to them just like any ordinary people. So I got to know them, and I found out that wasn't true. Again, we just take turns. So I was tempted to put them on a pedestal, but people helped me resist that temptation. And I was able to see that people are just people. And some of them, it helped a lot that I knew them before they had a position that I would have really totally admired. And I knew that there were people like me, and I knew that we just take turns at these jobs. So when I came back, I found a group that needed an intergroup rep, and I became an intergroup rep, and then still got back into intergroup committees and so on. And now I'm on the board of intergroup and a region rep and a WSEC delegate. And service for me is, well, it gives my life a purpose, and it gives my life fellowship with other people who have the same purpose and are working together to get things done. But this time I paid attention to my recovery, and I did work the steps more than once. And I made sure that I had a good sponsor and that I was working with a sponsor. And I had certain talents that were brought out by the service positions, and I had certain deficiencies which had to be countered to get the service positions or the jobs done. And I learned a whole lot about myself. I learned what I was good at, and I learned where I needed improvement, and I had all kinds of help with the parts that I needed improvement for. People just volunteered to help. It was, nobody left me alone hanging, having said I would do a job that it turned out that I was really having trouble with. Everybody was very helpful. Everybody was taking turns. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter who sits at the head table and who sits in the chairs, because we all rotate through. And the people that sit at the head table now, maybe next year they'll be in the chairs and vice versa. The fellowship that brings, that we're all equal, that we all can do these things, and we're all in it together, and every one of us has talents and deficiencies, and every one of us has a place to be and a part to play, and it stretches my limits. It really stretches my limits. And I'm with other people that are also taking that step beyond their comfort zone, and we're all together reaching for, I don't know what, we're reaching for recovery, we're reaching for service, we're reaching for fellowship, and we're reaching for getting jobs done and working together. And there's nothing like working together with people. You get to know them, you get to enjoy them, you have the sense of accomplishment. There's something about everybody taking turns that just really well, it turns me on to the fellowship. And that's I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your share, Elizabeth. I'm assuming since you didn't present any questions, you didn't have any points for discussion with our members here today. Is that correct?
That's right. I'd like people to talk from their own experience.
All right. Terrific. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here sharing on the fellowship tradition, Tradition 8. What we're going to do now is we are going to open it up for sharing. What I'd like to do is remind people that they're being recorded, so if they wish to remain anonymous, please use a fictitious name, or you can just say, I'm Miss Anonymous or Mr. Anonymous, and proceed. So we're going to open it up. So the floor is open for anyone who'd like to share on fellowship.
Hi, my name is Donna, and I'm a compulsive overeater.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. On the subject of fellowship, fellowship is really important in my 12-step program. My dog has fellowship right now. It's thundering. It's a monsoon outside here, and she is shivering on my lap, but I'll try to focus on what I'm doing here. She's very, very nervous. One of the best times we've had here in my area for fellowship was when a couple of us got together and we planned out a fellowship event every month. This lasted for, I don't know, maybe about a year, and we planned it ahead of time. We got the word out through our newsletter, and also we had a sheet of paper that we passed out at meetings and stuff, and we went to movies together. We went tubing down the Itchitucknee River together. There were 24 of us, if you can imagine, 24 OAs in swimming suits to begin with, getting up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and tubing down the river. That was really fun, and we did camping together. We did all kinds of things together, and spending time with OA people, even if I'm not tubing down a river, really, really great. And this morning, a couple of OAs were out in my swimming pool with me, and we had breakfast together, and we journaled together, and we just chatted and talked and played with our phones like teenagers together, trying to figure things out. Staying abstinent together is what fellowship is all about for me, and it's a different relationship that I have with OA people than I have with other human beings on earth, because not that there's anything wrong with anybody else, but I have a huge affinity with OA people, and it's really a blessing, one of the huge blessings of the program, and certainly not one that I came here for. I only came to OA to lose weight. That was it. And this is one of the huge, huge benefits. And since it's a disease of isolation, also a very critical benefit, because I'd much rather just be eating and watching TV, to tell you the truth. That's the ticket into the pit. So I can't really afford to do that. But it's also almost like a subject of isolation for me, because I live 10 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm retired for 13 years. I could go out and drive. It takes me 10 minutes to get to the Gulf and walk around on the beach or go in the water or do something. The only time I go out there, and it's partly fellowship, because there's a meeting out there on Wednesday nights. I do show up for the meeting. Sometimes we swim, sometimes we walk, sometimes we just sit there and have a meeting. Sometimes we look at the stars because it's dark in the wintertime. It gets me out of isolation. Fellowship gets me out of isolation. And it's a benefit to other people as well as myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Is there someone else who'd like to share?
Hi, this is Casey. May I share?
Sure, go ahead, Casey.
First of all, I'd like to thank the speaker. I appreciate on a bright and hot, sunny afternoon that you're here, and I heard a lot of beeps, so I appreciate that everybody else is here, which, again, is quite a symbol of fellowship. As someone mentioned, I didn't come into OA for fellowship. I did come in because of step one. I knew my life was unmanageable, and my food and phone management I was powerless over. I'm obviously nervous as I can't quote step one, but anyway, you guys know what I mean. The fellowship came slowly because I did not want to let anyone in, but it is a major part of my program and recovery. Meetings, face-to-face meetings to me are crucial in that I get so much fellowship there, and people at those meetings say, I want what you have. And I'm like, well, you see me at my best, because how can I not be happy, joyous, and free sometimes at an OA meeting? Yes, sometimes, I'm stressed or whatever. I'm not real coherent right now. But the phone was stressed, 3 calls a day, et cetera, and that was very difficult. And yet I was encouraged to do it, and got a good skill with that, and that increased the fellowship so that, again, I was not involved in the isolation. And I find today with all the high tech, it's much easier for me to isolate. If you text me or I text you, yeah, I'm fine. I could be lying through my teeth, and nobody knows that. Whereas on a phone call or at a face-to-face meeting, people realize it and come up to me. I come to OA to hear the Strength, Hope, and Recovery. It talks about we have a common problem, and that is an abnormal relationship to food. But we're here for a common solution. And for me, the solution is the abstinence, but also the recovery through the principles of the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts of OA service. Walking in, my higher power brought me in years ago and started saving my life. A friend did not bring me. I kept saying I went by myself. Well, HP brought me in, and it's helped me to keep coming, to keep growing, to keep learning those principles in all my affairs. And it is through the fellowship, through the people before me and the people after me, that I see how to work this program, not just the food, but all the emotional and the spiritual, all the highs and lows, all the broken shoestrings and the death of a family member or pet or buying, selling a house, all the life is hard. But with program, it's good to live, and I can say that now. And it is because of the fellowship of this program. And the fellowship and relationship with my higher power, both of those keep growing. The fellowship within OA and my OA friends, and the fellowship with my higher power that keep me coming back. More so than the fact that I've lost 60 pounds and have kept it off for X number of years. I just pray to God every day that I will stay in because my life has been saved by that fellowship. So thank you for letting me share. And again, thank you for having this workshop, 3 o'clock Eastern Time, just what I needed on a hot and humid day. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Someone else like to share?
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. This is Jason J., a grateful, recovering, compulsive overeater in sunny, beautiful St. Petersburg, Florida, which is presently under 12 inches of rain. It's crazy. Thank you so much for the qualifier and for the discussion on the 8th tradition concept of service. Just to be here, the Roseanne promise comes to mind, and what it is that what fellowship means to me, that we're here because, well, I'm here because I'm a compulsive overeater, and I hope everybody else on the line has that in common with me. But the thing is that the Roseanne promise, I put my hand in yours, and together we can do what we could never do alone. And yeah, there's no longer that sense of hopelessness, and I no longer depend upon my own unsteady willpower, because we're all together now, reaching out our hands for power and strength greater than ours, greater than Jason's for sure. We can accomplish so much as a unified group of compulsive overeaters working towards the common good, because we've found a solution in abstinence and having a working relationship with our own perspective, higher powers, and the God of my understanding for me. I do believe strongly that fellowship is reinforced by serving the OA fellowship, giving back through service. It all ties together like a neat package from Tiffany. Sorry about the outside reference there. But I know for myself that I have to stay connected. Being a very introverted person, I can sometimes overcompensate with super extroversion and be a little bit too boisterous or loud or opinionated or whatever. And I work my program just to look people in the eye and be genuine of what I'm saying and reconcile it with what I'm feeling and what I'm saying. My sponsor, who has a lot of years of recovery and experience in many of the things that I've walked through, says, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And she also says, I say what I mean what I say, but I just don't say it mean. And so I keep moving forward and putting one foot in front of the other, and it's God that's removed 152 pounds from my body. It's actually not the fellowship. The fellowship was a tool in which I could get outside of myself and realize that I am but a small grain of sand on the beach of recovery. of life, because it's recovery that connects me back to the life that I was born to live rather than the one that my convoluted ideas got me into. A lot of situations, a lot of dark recesses, a lot of negative emotions, and I choose to see what is good and beautiful in the world through my fellows in OA, with their flaws, with their wonderful gifts. I look beyond and I see the goodness and the oneness, the common bond that we have, that we're here reaching out our hands for power and strength greater than ours. And as we join hands, we find love and understanding beyond our wildest dreams. And it is true. It's not words, it's truth. I wish you peace, love, and abstinence just for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Is there someone else who'd like to share?
I'd like to share, please.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm Marcy, a grateful recovering compulsive overeater from New Jersey. And when I went to my first meeting in 1994, I felt accepted and loved and just so much love for the very first time in my life. Before, I always felt like an outsider looking in. And I met my best friend of 22 years at that very first meeting, and we still talk on the phone every day. I can tell her anything. And I left the rooms about 9 years ago. I had an 8-year relapse, and I didn't go to the rooms, and all I cared about was eating, sleeping, and smoking. That's all I did, and I was terrible to live with. And then I came back last year, and I lost over 100 pounds. I almost got a lot of peace and serenity. But the thing I didn't do in my first recovery is I never really first of all, I never really worked the steps, and second of all, I never really built a network. I make phone calls too often, and now I make phone calls every day, and I have a network of people who I can talk to. And there's nothing like OA people. I can be honest with these OA people about anything, and they don't judge me. So I'm just very grateful. I'm going to keep coming back.
Thank you very much, Marcy. Thank you very much, everyone, for your sharing. We have another minute or two before we move on to halftime. Is there someone else who'd like to share about fellowship? Hi, this is Stephanie. I'm going to take just a moment to talk about fellowship. You know, I'm grateful to be an abstinent compulsive eater also from Florida. One of the things that I really liked about fellowship was it was a place that was safe for me to try things on. The first time I ever danced in public was at an OA event when someone said earlier, mean what you say and say what you mean, but don't say it mean. And as someone who had kept all my feelings down and taught to keep all my feelings down, I really didn't know how to express myself in a way that was very kind. So thankfully in the fellowship, people accepted me as I was and were kind and would take me aside if I stepped on somebody's toes and help me with that. So I got to practice it was like somebody gave me a handbook of how to live life when I came to OA, and in the fellowship I got a chance to practice that. There was a group of us from my home meeting that used to call ourselves the Traveling Hopefuls, and we would try to get speaking engagements across the other side of Florida, and we would travel together in a car, pack our lunch and all that kind of stuff, and we put on little skits and each tell our recovery story and all that kind of stuff, and that was really wonderful. But the best part for me was the traveling back and forth in the car together, joking, talking about everything under the sun, from sex, old boyfriends, rock and roll, you name it. There was nothing off limits because we were that good of a friend. And I found that as I do service, the fellowship really gets integrated into that. There's many a time that a group from our area has gone to a Region 8 convention or assembly, and just traveling together, being in the car with a bunch of other compulsive overeaters is really a blast. I never knew that. Growing up, I never had friends, and in OA, I had friends. I have a friend here nearby who says, this is my logical family, not my biological family, and I think that's what I found here in OA in the fellowship, my logical family. So thanks for letting me share. We are going to move on to the halftime. The only thing I'm going to do here is just remind you that the 7th tradition is a really important tradition. Every OA group should be self-supporting and declining outside contributions. So the principle behind that is responsibility, and we each have responsibility to help support the World Service Office, even if we don't have direct costs associated with this particular meeting. As I said earlier, our group number is 82278. You can go to the website and contribute. There's a button called Contribution right at the top. You can send a check to the World Service Office to help support the fellowship. There's lots of different ways. If you have any questions about how to do that, just contact the World Service. business office, and they will be happy to tell you their phone numbers on any piece of OA literature. Thank you all for helping carry the message. So now we are ready to welcome our second speaker, who's Donna. She's going to talk about the 8th concept, and the principle behind that is delegation. So please, Donna, unmute and share with us.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, my name is Donna, and I am a compulsive overeater, abstinent today. And I am going to tell my story for 8 minutes and then talk for 12 approximately about the concept. I came into the program in 1980, March 25th. And before that, I think I had a problem with compulsive overeating and food since about 4th grade. I kind of went through my life in one stage of obesity or another. I blamed a lot of things in my life for the fact that I was overweight, even though I could see around me people that were overweight and still got married and had children and everything. I blamed a lot of my isolation and inability to take part in things with the compulsive overeating and the obesity, which went together for me. And just jumping ahead in my story, after coming to OA, I lost weight immediately within the first 18 months from 225 down to about 125 pounds. And so I just never imagined that I wouldn't turn into an entirely different person due to the weight loss. Because all the things, I'm just sitting here now realizing that all the things that I blamed on the weight, when the weight went away, my life was pretty much the same. And so, I mean, if I was shy before, I was still shy. I did not turn into a cheerleader. I did not turn into a movie star. I did not turn into anything that I thought I was going to turn into. The world was not as I thought it was going to be. And my dad said to me after losing weight, he said, Donna, now you're just another tree in the forest. And so that has been true for me. So partially. So getting back to my story, I went through high school isolated. I remember sitting in the homeroom every single morning for a half hour in the corner in the front of the front row, right next to the windows in the front seat. I never said a word to anybody in that room. We weren't supposed to talk anyway, but everybody else did, I'm sure. And one guy in the back of the room in my senior yearbook wrote to the fixture in the corner of the room. And I definitely was. So college, no dating, few friends, and anybody that was really friendly with me in high school or anything, I just figured they were losers like I was. That's just the way I looked at it. There was a whole world out there. I just wasn't part of it. Pretty much in college, too. Got married. I married somebody from a article that was in the parade section of a newspaper. The magazine section, they advertised 10 dates for $10. And some other girlfriends that I was living with at the time, we filled this out, and I think it was 5 dates. I think it was 5. He was the 5th one. Anyway, I married him. And stayed married for 13 years. In the midst of that marriage, I was probably sort of less obese at the beginning of it. And immediately after moving to Florida from Minnesota and getting a job, I just started putting on weight. Stayed married, teaching school, and trying every single diet in the world, all the diets, and I would lose weight. I'd stay on the diet for about a minute and a half or a week or 2 weeks. I might maybe lose weight or whatever. But the one theme was I could eat now and get abstinent, or get back on my diet on Monday, get back on my diet after whatever, or tomorrow, or Monday morning, or whatever. That was my pattern, and I had that down pat. Then I came into OA. I just was really, really desperate. I came into OA on March 24th, 1980, at 225 pounds. I was 22 and a half dressed, and they handed me a dignity of choice. I went to one meeting a week. I did what they said. I just followed directions. So I'm a good little girl, so I followed the directions, and I took down the phone numbers, and I made the phone calls, and somebody said, do you have a sponsor? And I said, no. And they said, well, I could be your sponsor. I said, okay. So I ended up with a sponsor. I ended up making the 3 phone calls. I ended up calling in my food, and it's the same food plan that I do today, pretty much. Dignity of Choice came back out later on in the years, and the food plan in there is very, very similar. Of course, I picked the food plan with the most food on it, so that's the one I do. And over the years, 36 years now, Same food plan, same plan here. Anyway, I'm going to switch gears and talk about delegation of service. I took a few notes here, and the first thing, before I forget it, I wanted to mention that in the years that I went to intergroup and we only had 4 or 5 people on the board, sometimes 3, I used to complain in my mind all the time, 4 people have to do everything, 4 people have to do everything, blah, 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 blah. Please, it'd be nice if we had. So I pushed, did what I could, and now we have a whole bunch of people on our intergroup, or sometimes like 18. And the curse of that is, first of all, you get what you pray for. But second of all, 4 people, a lot got done. Nobody argued. There was stuff to do. We all did it. We all got along. The 4 of us did the best we could. Now, 4 or 5. Now there's like 18 opinions. And so still a lot gets done. But now instead of 4 friends that would just eat together and everything, now we have a whole lot of people that personalities are involved, different opinions are involved. And so I don't get my way all the time. I guess that's the bottom line. And that's okay. So anyway, getting back to delegating. So I wanted to mention one thing that I thought I would share with you is a list we put together at the end of one of our yearly annual events. And I was in charge of something, and I got up in the front of the room, and there were probably about 20 or 30 people in the room at the time, and there was a big sheet of paper and a pen. And I asked the audience if they would, the OA members, if they would please come up with kinds of service so we can delegate, and we don't have to do everything ourselves. We all generated different jobs and different service positions and ways that brand new people that just walked in the room could participate in OA and have a job to do. Because for me, one of the really success things is for people to take part, to be a part. I don't care if they just turn the lights on and off. This is the list that we came up with. They could take the chairs in and out. They can start up the We Care book and pass that around and get it ready to go. They can put the signs, if there are signs, we have sometimes signs that go out in our parking lot saying, meeting in place. Turn the lights off and on. Be the temperature person. Bring the literature to the meeting in the future. Of course, they can help inventory the literature. They can help take it off the table and put it away. They can hold up a lifeline and tell what that is and announce the Lifeline magazine. They could take the literature home and bring it back the following week. They can, in the following week, welcome newcomers and say, glad you're here. They can update the permanent phone list. They could be the treasurer or help the treasurer count the money afterwards. Newsletter person, they could announce the newsletter and tell everybody what that is. They could be the newcomer contact in the future and call somebody else that's also a newcomer and just say, glad you were at the meeting. Start a newcomer meeting. They could be the reader during the meeting and help read like the preamble or the concepts or the tools or the tradition, all that sort of thing. They could sign up to lead a meeting in the future. They can bring the calendar or pass the calendar around. Pass out a format so that if there's a format for each person in the room, they could be the person that takes them and passes them out. They can help pass out books. They can come early and help set the room up. They can stay late and help clean it up. Fellowship. Sometimes we walk around the outside of the building before and afterwards. They can announce that. Coffee. Offer a ride to somebody. Take down phone numbers. They can call other people during the week. Offer a Spanish newcomer packet. Do the welcome chips pretty soon. I'm not going to say on their very first meeting, but pretty soon. Carry the dignity of choice in the plan of eating and hand out beginner packets. Announce the websites, their big one, OA.org, their regional website, and their local one if they have one. Announce about the courier. Hold up a courier and tell everybody to take the courier to a doctor. And if it's not the newcomer doing this, you could get somebody in your meeting to do this. This is a way to delegate to everybody, really. Take a packet to the professionals. Share with doctors and members of OA. Our local intergroup here will supply a Lifeline subscription to our medical field. That's delegating. Put on a workshop. Come up with ideas for a workshop. Volunteer to help at the workshops. Be a mail contact. MALE. Stay after the meeting and call people that they haven't seen for a while. That's that isn't there today. Call during the week to somebody that is really gone for a while, and this is the language I heard that works really, really well. Hi, this is Donna. I know OA is not for everyone, but I was just thinking about you. How are you doing? Post flyers, attend health fairs, help the people be the person in your OA group that does attend health fairs. In our region here, we have a group people, which is professional outreach and PIPO, professional outreach and public information. So attend a health fair or get us into a health fair, OA, get us into a career day. The nursing graduations usually have some kind of a health fair where the different vendors are in there trying to give the nurses jobs. We show up there so that the nurses can see that we exist and carry the message. Getting our information onto a bus bench, be sensitive to minorities, staying abstinent, sponsor, be a temporary sponsor, return phone calls from people, be the downloader that goes online and brings flyers into the meeting, or even just one flyer and then announce it for local events and regional events and big OA events. So that's that list. I skipped a few things, but that's that list. I wanted to also share, and I do have 2 questions, but I also wanted to share something that has gone around our intergroup from time to time, and it's a opportunity. I have trouble separating service and opportunity for service is what I call it, and also delegating. But it is a form of delegating because otherwise one person has to do all this kind of stuff, and these are possible things that we can delegate. Delegate somebody to be the representative from each meeting to go to intergroup. Also the alternate rep, to somebody to contact the intergroups in the area, the other intergroups nearby, to find out what they're doing so that we can attend their functions and also get ideas from them. Somebody to find out what the new federal laws are in OA and how they affect Overeaters Anonymous, especially locally. To get our information into the local little papers that are around here and also the big one, just to let them know what meetings are in the area. Get these couriers, which are information from Overeaters Anonymous, reprinted every single year and rewritten every year, to let the medical field know exactly what's going on in OA and why to send people to OA and that we exist. Get those out to the medical field. Delegate somebody to go to radio stations in the area and put our PI spots on to help bring the word of OA through the radio. Also TV stations. OA already has this all prepared. All we have to do is get it there. Get our information into libraries. Lots of times libraries have some kind of a bulletin board to put up things, so have somebody in charge. Sometimes making a big long list of all of the libraries and offering it to people in OA and having a person sign up for every one of those libraries to keep our information up on the bulletin board current. It's a nice opportunity to delegate people to do that. And I have a spreadsheet in front of me that I'm looking at on my computer for every single library in our area, and there's about 30 of them, with a person's name next to it and their phone number and a email address from them and what meeting they attend locally here. And those people were responsible for getting information, keeping information in all of those libraries. Somebody to stay in contact with a webmaster, our local website for our local OA, to be the chair of technology in our intergroup, somebody to make the newsletter. We have a local newsletter here, so that's a service opportunity. Delegate somebody, and another possibility for service and delegation is to write an article for the newsletter, to get our newsletter up on the website, to have a technological committee, to have a tech web person, somebody to help them, to have workshops so that other people, something that's been successful for us is to have a technology workshop for OA, because a lot of people do not know even what a podcast is. So we have workshops, and somebody to have a workshop like that and explain what a podcast is, how to access it, how to access the OA websites on a computer, things that I just take for granted. A lot of people don't know how to do that, so that's another possibility for service. Somebody to tell about phone meetings or online meetings. I'm running down, but I'm sure there's about 1,000 more things here. Like a Lifeline representative, like I already talked about, somebody in charge of fellowship activities, and I have going to a dance together, going to a movie night together, having somebody in charge of having workshops. Locally here, we have a workshop every single month doing something, some kind of an OA workshop, in addition to fellowship activities, game nights, all that sort of thing. All kinds of opportunities for fundraising locally here, too, getting together. We've had mending days, just a fellowship get-together where we all brought our mending. I mean, any reason we can come up with where we can all get together and have fellowship is really a benefit. Of course, we put on a floor. We have a state convention here, so there's opportunities for service along those lines.
Donna, it would be a good time to go ahead and wrap up and maybe do your questions so we'd have an opportunity for others to share, if you don't mind.
Perfect. Okay, so the two questions and wrapping up would be get everybody involved. That would be my bottom line. Get them something to do. I don't care what it is. And I guess the bottom line would be, especially newcomers are going to think that they absolutely have to come to a meeting if they're in charge of putting the lights off and on. I'm not even exaggerating. That's pretty much it. Okay, my two questions are, number one, how do you delegate service? And number two, how do you keep from feeling resentful and experiencing burnout when you get to thinking that you're the only one on the planet that's doing any service and you have to do everything? Those are my two questions. I'll repeat them. Number one, how do you delegate service? And number two, how do you keep from feeling resentful and burned out from thinking that you're the only one on the planet that does any service at all and you have to do everything? That's it.
Thank you, Donna. We've got about 5 minutes before we close here for anyone who'd like to speak to those questions or who'd just like to share about delegation. So the floor is open. Please press.
This is Chris J. from Huntsville. Can I share?
Sure. Go ahead, Chris.
First of all, I want to say thanks so much. Man, I could hardly take all the time to write down most of the things that were shared about, taking part in our groups, and I really appreciated that. Some good brainstorming there. The other thing is I wanted to speak to the second question about getting burnout. Our intergroup is kind of small, and most of the service positions have been rotated through pretty much the same people off and on over the last 9 years at least that I've been involved, and we are getting some new people coming in to do service positions. But for those of us that have been rotating through, like especially when we do a workshop and we're still the only ones that show up or something like that, despite a big attraction thing to get the word out, if I have hope that people are going to show up and that things are going to get done, that's great. And if I have expectations of a certain way that it's going to turn out or a number or something, then the expectations and my disease and the hope is with my higher power. I just put it in his hands. And I keep reminding myself that my recovery is my business. I do service for my recovery. And if somehow that gets out to other people, that's great. And that's for me, one of the things that just keeps it fresh. I acknowledge the feeling of the disappointment or whatever, but if I'm getting resentful about my service work, then it's time to step back in big time. So those are just a little bit of my thoughts on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Who'd like to share next?
Hi, this is Cindy. May I share?
Sure, go ahead, Cindy.
Hi. The other question was one that always is fun for me, and that is, how do we get people? How do we get to delegate what we need done? I've always found that the best way to get people to do the task is to ask, not expect. I've been to a lot of meetings where you kind of say, oh, we need someone to do this, and everyone in the room just looks at each other, not willing to raise their hand or offer, or there's someone like me who's always raising their hand, and then we become the person that is resentful or wonders about why don't other people want the opportunity. So what we have to do is encourage someone who may not have the courage to raise their hand, but you can just quietly say, I really think you would be good at this. I really think that you have what it takes to get this done. We really need your help to keep the intergroup going or to keep the meeting going, or we need you to bring the key. I kind of liked the first person story where they said they just looked at her and said, it's your turn. I really like that, because if we don't have some way of relaying to the other person that they are important and that they need to become a part of, not just an observer of, but a part of this fellowship, and that service is not optional. Service is required. It is, if you read the traditions, if you pay attention to what the steps really say, we have to become a part of this fellowship beyond our own needs, beyond our own desire to lose our weight or whatever. We have to be willing to give back and carry the message. And each of those tasks that were listed are different ways of helping to carry the message. The first time I led a meeting, I walked in and the book was on the table, and the person I thought should be leading the meeting, I walked over and I said, "Aren't you going to lead the meeting?" And she said, "No, I think it looks like it's your turn." And I did, and I've been given service ever since that day. I believe that that's a huge part of why it's important is because it kept me coming back. It made me feel better about myself. It made me expect more of myself, but it kept me coming back. And so with that, I'm going to pass, but thank you to both speakers and all the ideas that were shared.
Thank you, Cindy. It's getting time for us to close, so I want to remind us that the opinions expressed here today are those of individual OA members and do not represent OA as a whole. We hope that you'll join us next month as we take a look at our topic for next month, which is service structure, not power structure. And we'll be looking at the structure tradition, which is tradition 9, and concept 9, which is also about ability. If you'd like, we're going to close with the Serenity Prayer. Thank you very much for coming to the Service in My Recovery workshop. It was great to hear people share about their service, how they delegate, and use fellowship to stay and maintain their abstinence and their recovery. Thank you all for being here today. We hope you'll join us next week. Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity,
grant me the
to accept the things I cannot change,
I cannot change,
the courage to change the things I can,
change the things I can,
and the wisdom to know the difference.
To know the difference.
Bye now.